Welcome back. My name is Lindsay Wallen, and today we're going to be learning about our regulatory department, what they do, and how they can help us help our students. Their responsibilities are to know what the state laws and regulations are, and also help us comply with those. The other thing that the regulatory department does for us is that they are the ones that report the completed courses to the states if the state requires it. There are a few different situations where we need to rely on our regulatory department for additional help. We're going to go over those different situations where we would need to call upon them and create a case to send to them so that we can get that help we need. The first scenario is that if a student is already enrolled in a course for one state or has already completed the course for that state, but now they need a credit for that course for a separate state. The regulatory department would have to create a new credit request off of the original course and enrollment number. Therefore, we need their help to do this. That we would call additional credit. The next one would be if we needed to rush a roster to the state. So let's say that the state that we're talking about reports on Thursday and today is Monday. The student completed the courses over the weekend and would like them submitted to the state today instead of waiting so that they can renew their license this week. We do have the capability. We first want to check the time of day, and I would suggest not sending a rush roster and expecting it to be done if it's past 3 p.m. during that workday. If not, it would be done the following morning. In that case, we also do charge the student $10. It's not $10 per course, but $10 for any courses that need reported at that time. The third item would be if we need a roster resubmitted. So in the past, the regulatory department has already reported the course to the state, but for unknown reasons, the course is now not showing up on the state's website. We then, most of the time, have the opportunity to resubmit the course to the state for the student. We would ask the regulatory department to resubmit. The last one would be a general or a miscellaneous. In general, if a student is using this course for any association that they're a member of, or any college or anything along that lines, that company or association may ask that for them to be able to provide the student credit for what they completed with us to be able to count for that association or college or whatever, then our regulatory department can find the course outline, send it back to you. That way you can forward it to the right location for who needs it. There are a couple other reasons that you might have a general or miscellaneous. That would be if there was a question on how the state works or if something is true about the state, they can also answer those types of questions. So to begin, to create a case for the regulatory department, we're going to start with roster resubmit. We would pull up the student's NetSuite account. We would then go over to our support or help tab. Once we're there, then we would want to create a new case. This is the form that we need to fill out so that it gets sent to regulatory department so that they know what we need. The first part we need to be careful on is the subject. Our regulatory department accesses these off of an Excel spreadsheet. Therefore, they need to be typed a certain way so that they show up properly in their worksheet and they aren't overlooked. For roster resubmit, we're literally going to type roster resubmit. Then we want to do a space and a dash and a space and tell them what state we're going to be resubmitting this course for. In this case, it was Florida. Once again, it's going to be a space and a dash and a space. And then we need to tell them what license they're reporting this for. And that would be appraisal, APP. That way, it needs to look just like that so that it does show up in their Excel worksheet. The next tab we want to work on or worry about is the department that we're assigning this to. We can scroll down to R for the regulatory compliance, and there you have it. It's going to go to them. The other part we want to assign it to is the person that's in charge. That is going to be Tracy Pilling for any of those uses. Her name is spelled Pilling. Perfect. Okay. Now we see that the status is not started, so we want to make sure that it stays that way because it really isn't started. They're the ones that are going to do the work. All right, and now that we have that, the next one you see is the priority. With the priority on the drop down, we have several different options. The standard is going to be a P2, important and non-urgent. With P0, that is an emergency. We only want to select this if in the next hour or so the student may lose their license, be in trouble with the state, or something on a very emergent level. Our regulatory department is very efficient and there are not going to be a ton of emergencies out there. If you do send a P0 case, in that situation, you do need to either Skype, email, or call Tracy Pilling and let her know that you have set that case as an emergency and give her a heads up that she needs to keep an eye open for it and work on it. A P1, as you can see, says important and urgent. It's important that it gets done and it needs to be done ASAP. That may happen a little bit more often, but for the majority of the time, their cases are going to be a P2, important and not urgent. It's important it gets done. It doesn't have to be right this second. Next, we want to go down to the outgoing from support rep. We are the support reps. So therefore, we want to type a message in here to explain what we need from them to do for us. In this case, I always try to say hello and be courteous. The first line needs to tell her what we need her to do for what state and what license. Please resubmit roster for Florida appraisal on. Perfect. Tells her exactly what she needs to do. Now we need to tell her what course we need it for. In this case, we want to send her the enrollment number. That number can be found under the enrollment tab, and it always begins with an EN. Then we want to give the title of the course. Now that we told her what we need done for what course, we would want to let her know that although it was already submitted, the state's not showing it and we need it submitted again. There. Then we always want to end our conversation with them with a huge thank you because they are always going out of their way to help us do what's best for us and our students. Now that we have everything filled out, all we need to do is scroll up to the top and save it. Once this is saved, then under our support tab, we now have a new case. As you can see, there is a number designated to it that we will want to use in our note. It also tells us what it was for, what the priority was, and who it was sent to. Anybody that now pulls up that account can look at the information and know what's going on with the student and why they may be calling back in the meantime. We also want to make sure to put it in our notes. We would want to start the title with our case number and the reason. It was a phone call and the direction was in, and simply write okay. So now the next person that opened this up would know the course is not showing up on the state website, that we have sent the case to regulatory to get that accomplished, that we verified the customer's information as to alleviate any name spelled wrong or license spelled mistyped. That way we know that when the regulatory department sends it to the state again, that it is reporting to the right person. We would want to save our note, and then we would wait. As soon as the regulatory department does process this, then we would actually get an email back from them stating what the results were. Were they able to resubmit it? Were they not able to resubmit it? Is there any additional information they need from us or our student? At that point, once you get that notification, it is your responsibility to either go in and close it if it's all finished, or to find out that information and report back to regulatory. When you go to support, all you would need to do is find your case, edit, and now that it's completed, you would change your status to closed. Once you click save, it's now a closed case and we can move on with our lives. The next situation would be a little different. If we were adding additional credit for a course that was done in Nevada and we needed additional credit for California. We do start it a little different. In this case, we would need to go to additional credit. As you can see, this is going to show what courses we have available to add credit to, and it's basically just the 16-17 National USPAP. What we can do is select the Select Additional Certificates box next to that course, and this will show all of the states that that course is approved for and how many hours it's approved, whether it's a mandatory or whether it's core. So we were adding California credits. We would want to check mark the box next to it. As you can see, it's a 7-hour approval for California, and it is a mandatory course. Now, just because it's 7 hours in the state that it was in, doesn't mean that it's going to be 7 hours in the state that you're adding the credit for. Different states do have the opportunities to change that. In that scenario, then you would want to make sure that the student was well aware of it ahead of time. That way they have the decision whether or not to continue with that or not. Now that we have our state selected, all we would need to do is click OK. That's now going to show up under additional certificates, so we know that it was added properly. You can do one state or as many states as you need. If we open up this box and the state is not there that we were looking for, then that approval for that state for that course is not available. Now that we have that completed, we can add credit so that additional certificate can go into our invoice. We want to remember that the summary will tell us how much the student owes for that additional certificate. Appraising additional certificates are always going to be $20 per state per course. Real estate can vary from $10 to $15, or excuse me, $10 to $20, depending on the length of the course. We want to make sure we check our call type, whether it was inbound or outbound. And then we can apply any discount items if wanted. Free additional certificate, CSR discount of 5%. And remember, with these fees, these are LEAF decisions. So if there was extenuating circumstances where something had been overlooked or the student didn't understand that they needed to do it, then we can make that LEAF decision on our own. As we see down here at the bottom, it tells us what course we're adding credit, what state we're adding the credit for, how many hours it's for, and whether it's mandatory or elective. Now we would want to save our invoice. And now that it's saved, what we would want to do is copy the invoice number. We do not accept payment. The main reason for this is we do not want to charge a student for something that may not happen. If there's any reason that regulatory department could find that they can't add credit, such as seat timer or things of that matter, then we don't want to have the situation where we have to refund the money. Therefore, we would prefer that do the work, add the credit, and then charge the student. Next, we would want to go back to Megan's Home tab. Under here, we need to create a case so that regulatory department can put this all together for us. In that case, it would be under support for help and a new case. This subject title is going to be additional credit. Space dash space, our state that we're doing it for, and what type of license it's for. Perfect. Next, we want to determine what department we're assigning that to, which is the regulatory compliance, and assign it to the right person. Do we remember who that was? Yep, Tracy Pilling. Okay, this is going to be a P2, important and not urgent. This is going to be a very similar yet different scenario. So, hi Tracy. Please add credit for California appraisal on. And then what number? That's right, EN number. The name, then we want to tell her how to charge the invoice. So we want to say, please use card ending 4423 for invoice 5180235. That way, after she adds credit to California appraisal for the National USPAP course that was completed, then she will charge the invoice with the card that's on the system ending in 4423. This gives Tracy all the information she needs to complete this transaction for us and get our student the additional credit they need. As always, we want to thank her for all her help, and then we just save. We want to remember that it creates a new SBC number that we want to copy, and we're going to paste into the title of our note. In this case, we would title it Add Credit. Our note would consist of something along the lines of needed credit for CA, use PAP, sent case, and charged 20, or waived fee, or discounted fee, or whatever you would like to say. We also hope that you verified the student's information and confirmed the roster as to when that will be sent to the state, if we do. Now, if the regulatory department is able to add credit, if the course is not completed, Then when they do complete the course, they will be able to print off not only their Nevada certificate for credit, but also a California certificate for credit, unless a regulatory or a required document is required. At that point, we would need to wait for that. If the course is already completed, then the regulatory department will also take the extra step and email that certificate to the student so they have it for their records. The course would then be set up that if we report the roster in that state, that it would be going to the state the next day we do submit that. Perfect. Save our note. Another scenario would be a rush roster. That's where we need it sent on a day that we normally do not report to that state, and we charge the $10. So the first thing we need to do is create an invoice. This is going to be a little different than most of the times when you create an invoice. Instead, we're going to first go under Sales tab. And then we want to create a new invoice for it. Once we have this, we want to select, was it an inbound or outbound call? And in the first item line, we want to type Rush Roster. As you can see, it automatically pulls up, so we want to select that. But now a lot of this is definitely empty, so we want to make sure that we fill each one of these in. What profession was it? It's appraising. What type of education is it? Continuing education. What state did we do it for? We did it for California. All right. And then we would also want to select the license from any that are listed on their account. Now that we have that all set up and our information filled out, we want to click to add that line. Therefore, then the price will show up with a $10 fee. Once again, that LEAF decision comes into play. If there are extenuating circumstances to why we had that, you would definitely want to think and make an empowered decision as to whether you were going to waive that fee or not. Now we want to save our invoice. Now that we have that, we want to highlight and copy the invoice number because we're going to need it for our case. Remember, we do not accept payments for cases. We would rather regulatory department let us know if they can do that and send it on a different day than to have to call the student back and refund the money. Now that we want to create a case, we're going to go back to the home account. From here, we're going to click what tab? That's right, support. We need to create a new one for this situation. This subject, and we will give you a cheat sheet for your desk for these subjects. This one is going to be Rush Roster. Put our dashes and spaces in. It would be Florida and APP. Then we would want to pick our regulatory department to send it to, and Tracy Pilling in particular. It's not started still. We need her to do it. Priority. This might be a P1 just to make sure that she gets it done as soon as she can within a reasonable time. Again, we want to remember that if it's past 3:30, we do not want to guarantee to the student that it's going to be done that day. More than likely, it could be. But we never want to disappoint our students, so the best option would be to say, if it's not done today, it will be done tomorrow morning. Now we want to tell Tracy what we're doing with our case. That would be, please rush roster to Florida Appraisal Board for our enrollment number, EN, and then our course title. Then we need to tell her how to charge the $10. and what invoice we're going to charge. And as always, a big thank you to Tracy. So, Tracy now knows that she's going to rush this roster to Florida Appraisal as soon as she can. It's going to be for the National USPAP course the students completed, and we need to charge the card ending in 5523 on the account for invoice number 5180262. Perfect, great job. Now we're going to save this. That way it gets submitted to Tracy ASAP, and we're going to use our SVC or case number in our notes. That way, if that person calls back in the meantime, and believe me, it does happen, we will be able to know intelligently what's going on with that student and whether that has been completed or not. The other thing I want to remind you of is if you are not processing the credit card, another way to put it in there so that Tracy has it is under the Financial tab. As you can see, there is no card here, so that would be of concern to her. What we would do is take the card number from the student before we send the case. We can actually edit this account, and we ourselves, without processing any payment, can type in the credit card number. Those are the 3 items that need filled out: credit card number, expiration date, and what type of card. All we would then need to do is save. If there are expired cards on here, we would definitely want to delete them out. Any less confusion we can help anybody else with is always a bonus. Now we're going to save, and our credit card will be there so that when Tracy goes to process that rush roster or additional certificate, she will know that's the card to use. Perfect. The general one, which I'm not going to show you, but basically the only difference is that we write general question in the subject line with the state. Then we want to explain what exactly we're looking for or what we need clarification on for that state's requirements. Again, a reminder, it instantly does send it to regulatory. So the only time you need to notify them that you sent a case is if it's a what? P0 emergency. That's right. So other than that, we always want to make a note. We want to remember that most of these fees are going to be able to be discounted or waived. And those are LEAF decisions. It's up to you. We empower you. Also, never hesitate to ask questions. We definitely don't want to waste our time if it's an easy thing to find out without bothering the regulatory department. Most of your coworkers will know most of the answers, and also if you're confused in the process, they can answer questions for you. So don't hesitate to keep us informed as to what we can do to make your job better. Hope you're having a great time learning, and we'll see you again. Thank you. Therefore, 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 it's now a closed case and we can move on with our lives. Therefore, we would prefer, therefore,